Okay, let's prepare for a deep dive into this stack of sources you've shared.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it reads less like typical research material and more like a gripping historical mystery.
It really does, yeah. And our mission for this deep dive is, well, to unpack your material, identify the key players, piece together the mysterious death at dawn that sort of kicks everything off,
Right.
and understand the larger, surprising events it seems connected to.
So think of us as your guides, navigating through these pages to get to the heart of what actually happened. The core of this whole thing centers around a young woman who we find out is named Libby
Hmm.
and her relentless investigation into the death of her father, Mr. Lane.
And the mystery starts immediately, doesn't it? Because the
Yeah.
official report is that Mr. Lane died in a duel in Calais.
Yeah.
But Libby, right from the very start, she's completely skeptical. She knows her father, and that story it doesn't ring true for her at all.
Exactly. So we're going to follow Libby's own account here, tracing her journey from that initial grim scene
Oh, it's grim.
through her efforts to uncover the truth while navigating some really serious dangers and meeting a cast of truly intriguing and sometimes terrifying characters.
We'll start with that immediate scene in Calais and her doubts, yeah. Then move through her precarious situation and her journey. Look at the unexpected connections she makes.
Yeah.
See how she infiltrates this seemingly respectable household, uncover the shocking secrets she finds there, and then witness the pretty dramatic events that unfold.
Okay, let's jump right in then. The sources open with Libby arriving in Calais, guided by this rather disreputable-sounding couple. The woman's breath apparently smelled of brandy.
Not a great start.
No.
Yeah.
And the scene she finds is just awful. Her father's body is under a yellowish sheet in this rough room. Flies buzzing, the smell of vinegar. It paints a very stark picture.
It's a really visceral opening, and the official story presented is that Mr. Lane died in a duel on the Calais sands.
Which Libby immediately and, utterly rejects. It's not just a gut feeling for her either. The text makes it clear why she knows this is false. She calls the idea of her father dueling the most appalling nonsense.
Right. She remembers this very specific conversation years ago when she was just a girl. She'd said something silly, about wanting men to fight duels for her.
Kids say the darndest things.
Ah, yeah. And her father responded with absolute seriousness. He told her if a man thought he could show love by violently taking another's life, well, he wasn't the man for my liberty.
My liberty. That nickname is so touching, isn't it?
It really is.
And that conversation is key. Her father explicitly said he'd never fight a duel and wouldn't want her with a man who would.
So this deep personal knowledge of her father's character, it just completely contradicts the official report. That contradiction is the driving force behind everything that follows. This is our first major insight from the material, you see. The official story is a lie from the jump, and only Libby's personal knowledge reveals it.
So, armed with that certainty, but also facing, immense grief, Libby finds herself in a really tough spot, especially financially.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
After paying for the trip, she's down to very little money. What was it? 5 sovereigns, 16 shillings, 4 pence? Something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, the sources detail how she had to sell her mother's locket and her grandmother's watch just to get there. She describes having to bargain fiercely like an old dame at market, she says, driven by desperation. It really highlights her immediate vulnerability.
Wow, yeah, that puts her struggle into perspective. So she makes her way to Dover and finds this old inn, the Heart of Oak, deliberately avoiding the fancier places where her aunts or maybe someone sent by them might find her.
And you get this image of her appearance, her second best dress, it says, a travel-worn bonnet, her hair plastered with dust. She's trying to maintain appearances, I suppose, but the reality of her situation is pretty clear.
She mentioned the letter from her father, too, sent just before she left England. It was written from Paris, posted express. He talks about finishing this tour with 2 noble but tedious charges. In his words, like feeding peaches to donkeys.
Ha! That's quite the image.
Isn't it? And he's looking forward to seeing my liberty back home. But what stands out from your sources is that he mentions nothing about danger, nothing about any kind of trouble.
That letter is another strong piece of evidence against the duel story, isn't it? I mean, why would a man expecting a potentially fatal encounter write such a light-hearted, forward-looking message? It just doesn't fit.
No, it doesn't. She writes a hasty note back to him at the end explaining why she's there and her dislike for her aunt, La Basilisk, as she calls her.
La Basilisk. Gives you an idea.
It does, implying her aunt is quite a fearsome character. And that note, it becomes surprisingly important later on.
Right, and the funeral itself just adds more suspicious details. The clergyman, Reverend Bateman, comes across as cold and, well, clearly focused on getting a tip from this poor, penniless girl.
Yeah, not great.
And the bearers, the men who carried the coffin, they say some strange things, and one is actually the man from the mortuary she'd already seen in Calais. While they mostly stick to the duel story, the glaring absence is the supposed friends who brought the body over from France. They promised to return, make arrangements.
But they just vanished.
Exactly.
Vanished.
That feels significant.
Yeah.
Why disappear? This is where Libby's conviction really hardens, isn't it? She realizes the duel story's a black lie. She starts considering that maybe even the bearers were paid off.
Right. And the danger she was trying to avoid in Dover, well, it quickly catches up with her. While she's in the graveyard, she's accosted by these suspicious men, the Hardy man, described as quite fat, and a man in black. They try to stop her talking to someone, and then they actually attempt to kidnap her.
This scene is wild. Her escape is incredibly resourceful and kind of funny in retrospect. She uses a tactic her father once chided her for a headbutt.
No way.
Yeah, a headbutt to the fat man's belly and tumbles out of their carriage right into a herd of pigs.
Pigs. The squealing swine spook the horses, apparently, and she gets away.
Saved by swine, you couldn't make it up. And amidst the chaos, she learns more, right?
She does. The man in black admits the note she got in England, the one supposedly from her father. It wasn't. It was sent on the fat man's instructions after her father's misfortune, supposedly to spare her distress.
Ah, so that tells her someone was actively trying to control the narrative and keep her away. Manipulation from the start.
Exactly. And crucially, she learns why they were looking for her. They were searching for a woman her father had allegedly abducted from Paris.
Abducted. That's the word they use.
That's what they claim.
Yeah.
They thought Libby knew where this woman was. Libby knows nothing about her, of course, but she has this dawning realization. This woman must be the real reason her father is dead.
And the man in black confirms it.
He confirms her father left Paris with a woman.
So the plot completely pivots. It goes from a simple, albeit false, duel story to something much darker involving a mysterious woman, a supposed abduction, and dangerous men willing to kidnap. This is a major turning point insight from the sources you shared.
Absolutely. And right when she's in this really precarious position, needing answers and, frankly, money, an unexpected ally appears. Amos Legg.
Ah, Amos. He's this large, well-meaning sort of fellow, isn't he? Her father helped him out of some trouble with a lame horse back in Paris.
That's the one. Libby gets this note from him, written in big, slightly messy letters, saying he's waiting for her, your convenience, at the stables.
Your convenience. I like it.
Yeah. And Amos has this surprise for her. He tells her he brought Rancy back from Paris for Mr. Lane.
Rancy.
Now, Libby, thinking Rancy must be the mysterious woman her father died protecting, feels this surge of, well, bitter resentment that this person survived while her father didn't.
Oh, I can imagine. That must have been a complex moment.
But the reveal is incredibly poignant. Rancy isn't a woman. It's Esperance, a simply stunning, intelligent mare.
A horse?
Yes. Seeing the horse gives Libby what the text calls a shock to the heart, a delight so intense it feels like fear. Amos explains her father wanted Libby to see her, maybe as a surprise gift, and the mare's name, Esperance. It means hope.
Esperance. Hope. Wow. That feels incredibly symbolic given Libby's situation, doesn't it?
It really does. And there's a very practical side to Esperance, too. She's incredibly valuable. Amos estimates she's worth at least 1,000 guineas at Tattersall's.
1,000 guineas. That was a fortune back then. Tattersall's was the place for horse auctions in London, right?
Exactly. Now, Libby suspects her father didn't leave a will, which means anything he owned would technically go to her distant brother, who's away in India.
So that high value is a potential lifeline for Libby. It offers a way to get money quickly. She decides to act as her brother's agent, Clever, and plans to sell the mare at Tattersall's. This gives her at least temporary financial stability.
But as we know, money isn't her primary goal here. She needs answers. Selling Esperance might fund her, but it won't tell her who killed her father. She realizes she can't go back to her aunt's. That means losing her freedom. She needs resources to investigate. Her goal becomes crystal clear. Find the killer.
And this decision leads her back to Mr. Blackstone, the man in black from the graveyard incident.
Right. He still has her father's ring. Apparently he bought it from the people at the morgue, which is grim in itself.
Ugh.
He gives it back to her, reluctantly it seems. And then he offers her a proposition. help him in a great cause that her father supposedly would have approved of, something that might even put right the harm her father unintentionally caused.
The great cause sounds mysterious.
Yeah,
And it involves
Sir Herbert Mandeville. Described as a rich Tory and a bitter opponent of the Reform Bill that was the major political movement pushing for big changes to the British Parliament at the time. Blackstone believes Sir Herbert is somehow central to this plot, this cause.
Okay, so politics are involved. Libby must hate Blackstone, though, right? After the kidnapping attempt and his connection to her father's death.
Oh, she detests him. But she desperately needs information, resources, a way in. So she agrees. Blackstone gives her money 10 sovereigns and instructs her to become a governess at Mandeville Hall, Sir Herbert's estate, under the name Miss Locke.
Miss Locke, so she's going deep undercover.
Completely. The sources describe her training with this Miss Bodenham, learning the posture, the tone, the expected answers of a governess. She even gets the right clothes, yellowed cotton, darn stockings. She's preparing for this deep cover operation.
It's like something out of a spy novel, and she gets the job.
Lands it pretty quickly, actually.
Yeah.
After meeting Lady Mandeville and her rather intimidating mother, Mrs. Beadle. Mrs. Beadle is sharp, observant, but Lady Mandeville seems distracted, sort of unhappy, and Libby gets hired almost immediately.
Interesting. So she's inside Mandeville Hall, near Windsor and Ascot. What'd she find?
Well, once inside, she starts observing everything. She notices Lady Mandeville's unhappiness, Mrs. Beadle's formidable presence. She sounds like someone you wouldn't mess with.
Definitely.
And this general air of tension in the household. Seems like there have been recent changes of plan. A footman even mentions a connection to a letter from over the water from France.
A letter from France, tying back potentially. Okay, so she's perfectly positioned now, embedded in the household, connected to Blackstone's mysterious great cause.
Right, and life as a governess is demanding long hours, mending stockings, occasional, probably tedious card games with Lady Mandeville. But it provides ample opportunity to observe the family dynamics.
And what does she observe?
She sees Sir Herbert's unpredictable temper, his strained relationship with his son James, Lady Mandeville's clear fear of her husband, and Mrs. Beadle's fierce protectiveness of her grandchildren. It's not a happy household.
That's like it. Any other key players?
Yes, she also meets Celia, Lady Mandeville's stepdaughter. Celia's unhappy too, desperately needs a friend, and is secretly corresponding with someone named Philip. It's clear she's being pressured into a marriage she absolutely does not want.
Ah, the unwanted marriage trope. Okay.
Libby overhears chatter about a big upcoming dinner, and Ball, they even call it practice, cooking in the kitchens. A planned engagement announcement for Miss Celia is set for that night.
The plot thickens. Okay, so the pressure is mounting on Celia.
And here's where the danger really enters the picture again for Libby. Mr. Brighton arrives at Mandeville Hall.
Brighton. Wait, is this the... Yes.
Libby recognizes him instantly as the fashion plate from Calais, the one she saw with the fat man, the one known as Trumper.
Wow. So he's connected to Sir Herbert's household.
He is, and Lady Mandeville asks Libby Miss Locke to help copy the guest lists and place cards for the big dinner.
Ooh, a chance for intel. What does she find?
Studying that guest list provides a crucial and frankly terrifying insight. Mr. H. Brighton and Lord Kilkeel are listed as staying guests.
Kilkeel. Wasn't that the fat man?
Yes. Libby connects Brighton to the fashion plate Trumper from Calais, and more chillingly, Kilkeel to the fat man who tried to kidnap her in Dover. The men involved in her father's death are right here, under the same roof.
That's incredibly dangerous. She must be terrified.
You'd think so. Meanwhile, Celia's distress about her impending marriage deepens. She confides in Libby about Mr. Brighton, describing him with utter disgust and mimicking his effeminate gesture with lip balm.
The same gesture Libby saw in Calais.
The exact same one. This confirms it. This horrible man, Brighton, is the one Celia is being forced to marry.
Okay, so Brighton is the unwelcome fiancé. Then there's that tense encounter in the stable yard, right?
Yes. Libby, disguised as a boy, she borrowed clothes from Celia to run a secret errand related to Celia's correspondence with Philip, runs into Mr. Brighton near Esperance.
Near the horse. Risky.
Very. He makes these lewd comments, seemingly recognizing she's not a boy, despite the disguise. But luckily, he's interrupted by the convenient arrival of Amos Legg. It's a really close call, highlighting the risk she's taking every minute.
Phew. Good old Amos. Does she get a chance to talk to him properly?
She does. She takes the chance to visit Amos in Esperance again. Amos recounts meeting her father in Paris. He stayed at the same hotel, had friends there, mostly English gentlemen, a couple of Frenchmen.
Any women mentioned?
Notably, no women. just friends talking and playing music late into the night. Amos saw him off the next morning perfectly fine, in good spirits. And Amos doesn't recognize the men Livy describes, the thin, elderly one, the very fat one, Kilkeel, the young, fair-haired one in a blue jacket, Brighton, from that group her father was with.
So they weren't part of his immediate circle that night. Then a critical contact arrives at Mandeville Hall.
Yes, Daniel Suter.
Okay.
He's the orchestra director for the ball. Libby recognizes him immediately. He was her father's dear friend, a witty, observant musician. And crucially,
He was there, in Paris.
he was one of the friends with her father that last night in Paris. This is a huge break for Libby.
Finally, someone she can potentially trust who was there. Does she talk to him?
She decides to trust him. She tells him almost everything that he had, the death, the dual lie, the note, the kidnapping attempt, being sent to Mandeville Hall by Blackstone, her search for a woman.
Does she tell him about Mrs. Martley being there?
No. She wisely keeps Mrs. Martley's presence and the stable incident with Brayton secret for now. She asks Daniel if he knows Blackstone. He does. Calls him someone involved in wild schemes. She asks about the woman needing help. Daniel doesn't know anything about that. And then the key question, did he recognize anyone from Mandeville Hall from that night in Paris?
Please say yes.
And here's where another massive piece of the puzzle falls into place. Daniel did recognize Mr. Brighton.
Yes, from Paris.
From Paris. They were the same gathering where Brighton apparently caused a bit of a stir. Daniel's group asked Libby's father to translate some French gossip about Brighton. Her father, laughing, revealed Brighton's nom de guerre, his alias basically, that was known in Paris, gambling dens and pawn shops, and that he was jokingly posing as the rightful heir to the throne of England.
The rightful heir. Seriously.
Daniel and her father thought it was a joke at the time, just some guy posturing. This pretender is later identified in the text as Harold.
Harold. Okay, this connects everything, doesn't it? The insight here is massive. Sir Herbert Mandeville wants his stepdaughter Celia to marry Brighton, a.k.a. Harold, who's pretending to be a royal heir.
Presumably to link his family to a potential claim to the throne, gain political power, maybe disrupt the succession. It explains the anti-reform bill, Tories being there, the Duke, all these powerful guests.
And this must be the great cause. Blackstone mentions some kind of potential usurpation plot. Libby realizes Blackstone is interested in this conspiracy, probably not to support it, but maybe to exploit the chaos it could cause for his own radical ends.
Exactly. But amidst this unfolding political drama, another tragedy strikes inside the house. Mrs. Beadle is found dead.
Oh, no.
Found dead in the schoolroom. Libby actually sees her body being removed. The official explanation is she fainted and hit her head.
But Libby doesn't buy that either, does she?
Not for a second. She knows it's murder. And she suspects the killer is someone in the household or one of the dangerous guests connected to this whole mess.
This is getting darker and darker. Okay, so Mrs. Beadle is dead. Does Libby find the woman her father was helping?
Yes. The plot deepens significantly when Libby finally finds her. She's hidden upstairs in the maid's quarters, terrified and confused. Miss Martley.
Really? And her story, it's explosive, right?
Absolutely. She was a midwife, and she was present at the birth of Princess Charlotte's child about 20 years prior.
Princess Charlotte, George V's daughter, the one who died.
That's the one. The baby was stillborn, and the princess died hours later. Mrs. Martley confirms the wicked rumors about poisoning were false. She saw the food. Nobody else was near. Sir Richard, the baby's father, shot himself later out of grief.
So Mrs. Martley is a crucial witness to a major historical event tied directly to the royal family's succession line. Wow.
Exactly. And she recounts how years later, Lord Kilkeel, the fat man, found her in Paris, pretended to hire her as a wet nurse, then locked her up.
Why? What did he want?
He repeatedly questioned her about Princess Charlotte's death and the baby, tried to make her doubt her memories, probably drugged her tea. He wanted her to say the baby was alive or that she'd been paid off to say it died.
So Kilkeel was trying to find evidence, or create it, to support Brighton Harold's false claim to the throne. That's his motive.
Precisely. Mrs. Martley managed to escape Kilkeel in Paris. Cleverly, she poured out his drugged tea and drank washing water to clear her head. She went looking for English people for help and saw a gentleman talking to a horse in a hotel courtyard.
Her father, Mr. Lane, talking to Esperance.
That was him. He took her in and arranged for her safety.
So this is the critical insight into her father's actions and his death. He wasn't abducted. He was bravely helping this woman, this vital witness connected to a dangerous royal secret and a conspiracy.
Exactly. And Mrs. Martley was then brought to England by another lady steward, sent to Dover, and then brought directly to Mandeville Hall by none other than Lord Kilkeel himself,
Kilkeel brought her there. How?
hidden under the floorboards of his coach.
Under the floorboards. Chilling. And that confirms Kilkeel's direct involvement and his presence in the Calais-Dover area right when Libby's father died.
Yes, and it also reveals Mrs. Beadle's role. Mrs. Beadle must have discovered Mrs. Martley was at the hall and had been secretly protecting her from Kilkeel.
Which likely cost Mrs. Beadle her life. She was probably murdered by someone involved in the plot, Kilkeel, Brighton, maybe even someone else in the household, to silence her and get to Mrs. Martley.
It seems overwhelmingly likely. The tension is incredibly high heading into the planned dinner and ball now. Due to a last-minute guest cancellation, Libby is unexpectedly placed at the dinner table as Miss Locke.
Oh, wow. That's hugely risky. Kilkeel and Brighton are right there.
Right there. And at the dinner table, she meets Mr. Disraeli, the writer.
Benjamin Disraeli, the future prime minister.
The sources suggest it's him. He's very observant, seems to pick up on something unusual about Libby, asking pointed questions like, "Have you any notion why we are all here?"
Intriguing. What does Libby say?
She gives him a carefully edited version of her story, her father's death, the duel lie, the note, the kidnapping attempt being sent to Mandeville Hall by Blackstone, her search for a woman, but she wisely omits Mrs. Martley's identity and presence.
Smart move. How does Disraeli react?
He seems intrigued. He comments on Brighton Herald, calling him a Hanoverian byblow, basically an illegitimate descendant of the Hanoverian royals, a direct jab at his false claim, and a poor specimen. He clearly sees the political ambition at play.
Does he offer help?
He offers a fascinating perspective. He says ridicule can be more damaging than violence for ambitious men like these. He suggests he could spread the story in influential circles to get them laughed at.
Public humiliation as a weapon. Interesting. But Libby wants more, right?
Yeah, she's focused on justice for her father and Mrs. Beadle, not just making the plotters look foolish. Disraeli promises to do what he can.
Okay, so the dinner happens, then the ball. This is where it all comes to a head, isn't it?
It does. At the ball, Mrs. Martley, hidden away, sees Lord Kilkeel, and in that moment, she recognizes him fully, clearly.
Recognizes him as
the man who held her captive and brought her to Mandeville Hall. But the crucial detail is she identifies him as the other man in the carriage where her father died.
the traveling coach where Libby's father died. Yes, this confirms, without a shadow of a doubt, that Lord Kilkeel was present and directly involved in Mr. Lane's death.
Wow. That's the smoking gun, basically.
That is, with that confirmation, Libby, Daniel, and Mrs. Martley know they absolutely have to escape Mandeville Hall now during the chaos of the ball.
But their escape is intercepted, isn't it?
Yes, by Stephen Mandeville, Sir Herbert's son, Lady Mandeville's stepson. He's been sent by his stepfather to find Celia, but he seems to have figured out what's going on and realizes Miss Locke is actually Liberty.
So he confronts them. What happens?
A struggle ensues. It's dark, confusing, and Stephen Mandeville dies.
He dies. How is Libby?
The sources are a bit intense here. It's implied Liddy is involved, possibly in self-defense or accidentally during the struggle. The text mentions her feeling a fierce joy that quickly fades to weariness. Daniel is clearly shocked by this turn of events.
Good heavens. Another death. This is spiraling. What about Celia?
Well, Celia is also attempting her own escape during the ball to meet Philip, but she injures her ankle. Libby, Daniel, and Mrs. Martley find her.
Just when things couldn't get more complicated. How do they all get out?
And in another moment of, well, fortunate timing, Amos Legg appears. He's arrived with Esperance Rancy, having been contacted by Libby earlier about potentially selling the mare at Ascot races nearby.
Amos to the rescue again, with the horse.
Exactly. Libby quickly puts the injured Celia on Esperance with Amos, who takes her to meet Philip's waiting carriage, so Celia gets away safely.
Okay, good. So Celia's safe. What about Libby, Daniel, and Mrs. Martley?
They manage to escape Mandeville Hall in Philip's carriage, and as they drive away, Mrs. Martley confirms again. Kilkeel was definitely the other man in the carriage where her father died.
That confirmation is vital. Does Daniel shed any more light on Blackstone's motive?
He does. He reveals a pretty cynical view based on a conversation he had with Blackstone. Blackstone apparently admitted to manipulating events related to the Pretender plot.
Manipulating how?
Not for justice for Mr. Lane, but for a much larger radical goal. Provoking chaos, maybe even hoping to inspire revolution and abolish the monarchy entirely. He saw the Mandeville-Brighton plot as a potential spark.
So he used them. used Libby's father's death.
It seems so. Daniel says Blackstone deliberately allowed the duel story to stand to keep Kill unaware that he, Blackstone, was watching him, basically using Mr. Lane's death and Libby's investigation as pawns in his own bigger game. Libby is understandably appalled, sacrificing her father's reputation and life for this cold, calculated ambition.
That's incredibly ruthless. So they're escaping, but are they pursued?
Yes. As they try to get away, they are pursued. It's Lord Kilkeel riding after them on horseback. Mrs. Martley recognizes his voice, shouting.
Keel himself, does he catch them?
No, he actually collapses, seemingly from the exertion of the chase. Daniel finds him and, surprisingly, brings him back to his own nearby musician's pavilion to sleep it off, rather than leaving him for the Mandeville staff to find.
Really? Why would he do that?
The text doesn't explicitly say, maybe pity, maybe to keep control of the situation. Kilkeel's immediate fate is left, sort of, hanging. Okay, so let's recap what this deep dive into your source material has confirmed. Several key facts. Libby's father did not die in a duel, that's certain.
Definitely, man.
He was killed in a carriage. The men in that carriage were Lord Kilkeel, and it's very strongly implied by the sequence of events and Stephen's interception, Stephen Mandeville,
And the motive?
clearly tied to Mrs. Martley, the midwife, and the royal pretender plot involving Brighton Herald and Sir Herbert Mandeville. They needed to silence her or control her testimony.
And Mrs. Beadle.
We know Mrs. Beadle was protecting Mrs. Martley and was almost certainly murdered for it by someone connected to the plot. Could be Kilkeel, Brighton, maybe even someone inside the household staff acting on orders. Stephen Mandeville is now dead. Kilkeel has been momentarily apprehended, but his long-term fate is uncertain.
Right. But there are still quite a few lingering questions from these sources, aren't there?
Oh, definitely. The exact circumstances of the murder in the carriage, was it deliberate or maybe accidental during a struggle for Mrs. Martley? Who specifically killed Mrs. Beadle? What happens next to Kilkeel, Brighton Herald, and Sir Herbert Mandeville now that their plot seems exposed, at least partially?
And what is Blackstone's next move in his radical schemes? That feels like a whole other thread. And perhaps most importantly, what happens to Libby, Daniel, and Mrs. Martley now? They're fugitives, essentially.
Absolutely. But despite the horrors she's faced and the dark actions she's had to take, Libby's determination seems unwavering. She is resolute, as the sources show, to nail that great lie and uncover exactly who killed her father and why. Daniel, seeing her resolve, reluctantly agrees to continue helping her. He seems drawn into her quest despite the danger.
So what's their plan now?
Their immediate plan is to head to London. They're hoping the magistrates there will be less susceptible to Sir Herbert's influence than local authorities might be. Libby believes Kilkeel and the others can't really move against her now, given how much they have to hide about the plot.
But Daniel isn't so sure.
No, Daniel is understandably not willing to take that risk. Their journey and Libby's quest for the full truth and justice is clearly far from over, according to these pages.
Wow. This deep dive has truly taken us on a journey, hasn't it? From what looked like a simple tragic duel
Yeah, a personal tragedy.
to this incredibly complex, dangerous world of political ambition, hidden identities, a potential royal secret, multiple murders, and desperate flight.
We've really uncovered the layer upon layer of deception here. The involvement of powerful people in this cynical plot, exploiting a crucial witness and a fake royal claim.
And the tragic consequences, the sacrifice of lives, like Mr. Lane's and Mrs. Beadle's, and reputations, all for power in these radical schemes.
Hopefully, this exploration of the material you shared has provided you, our listener, with plenty of aha moments and a much deeper understanding of the intricate and dangerous situation Libby found herself navigating.
It certainly leaves you with a lot to consider, doesn't it? In a world of secrets and lies where ambition drives powerful people to such desperate acts, can justice truly be found? Or is it just maybe a different kind of truth that gets exposed in the end?
Or perhaps think about this. What price is simply too high for power or ambition? And how far would you be willing to go to uncover a hidden truth like this, and what might you have to sacrifice along the way? Something to mull over.
Definitely food for thought. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the sources.